Look at what's been happening in Israel to get a sense of how their numbers have changed. 63% of the country vaccinated, so higher than we have here. And yet you see they're at higher case rates now than they've ever been before. So, and this is after at least boosters in the age group 60 and older. So we talk about the fact that boosters will hopefully reduce breakthrough infections, but in Israel, in fact, cases are as high as they've ever been, a little bit higher than that even. So I think, there's lessons there. The vaccines are really good at protecting against severe illness. They may not be as good at protecting against breakthrough infections, and that's an important thing to remember, because if we keep saying breakthrough infections are going to inspire us to give more and more shots, that may be a little bit of a false metric, as Israel showing us.
Right, but of course the most important numbers are fatalities and severe illness or hospitalization, as opposed to just infection. Infection could mean you have you just have the virus but no side effects at all. How do you expect this new information to impact the FDA's decision on whether or not to officially recommend boosters for people who are fully vaccinated?
Jake, the honest answer is I don't know. I mean, this has been kind of a mess, to be quite honest, because the original messaging came out of the White House. And even though, the CDC and FDA and, the White House were on board with that, it became very clear very quickly that not everyone in those agencies at the FDA and CDC agreed. And you heard about the sort of high-profile announced departures of people at the FDA. There's a lot of back and forth on this. I think where the data seems most convincing, as we saw, for example, giving a boost to immune-compromised people. That makes sense. They were never able to generate enough of an immune response in the first place, so this boost will help them. People who are over the age of 60, that's where most of the data that we're seeing out of Israel really is focused on. And there, as I just showed you, there's some evidence of it. It's a little bit weak because huge confidence intervals and things like that, but there's some evidence. But whether or not the FDA will then recommend everybody get boosted, I don't know. I wouldn't think so, but we'll see.
Let's, Sanjay, stick around, but I do want to bring in CNN's senior medical correspondent Elizabeth Cohn, who has new details on the upcoming FDA decision. And Elizabeth, this is not going to be an easy decision for the FDA.
Jake, when FDA vaccine advisors meet on Friday to discuss boosters for COVID-19 vaccines, well, it is sure to be contentious and perhaps even somewhat bitter. Last month, President Biden came out and talked about the booster program, even gave a date for next week to start that program up. And that has made many scientists quite angry. They say the President of the United States should not be talking about something until FDA and CDC scientists have been able to look at the data and weigh in on their thoughts. So let's take a look at what some of this data is. At issue is whether 2 shots are enough to protect people. U.S. and Qatari studies suggest that 2 shots are sufficient to protect against severe illness, against severe COVID-19. But there are Israeli studies that suggest that 2 shots are not sufficient to protect against severe COVID-19. And out this hour from the New England Journal of Medicine, an Israeli study that shows boosters do protect against severe illness. That Israeli data is based on their booster program that started on August 1st. They've already given booster shots to millions of people. Now, there's another layer to this. We've already talked about shots protecting against severe illness, but would a booster shot protect against infection? We know that sometimes people get 2 shots of a COVID-19 vaccine and they get an infection. They get COVID-19. Typically, they don't get very sick. One camp says, that's not a big deal. These people don't get very sick. Another camp says, well, those people are still possible of spreading COVID-19 around, and we don't want that. So let's take a listen to something that Dr. Rochelle Walensky said recently.
In early August, we started to see that there was some waning with our vaccine effectiveness, just with regard to infections. People weren't getting that particularly sick yet, but just with regard to infections. And that foreshadowed, we may be seeing this soon with regard to hospitalizations and severe disease.
So the vaccine advisors are going to be debating this on Friday as Americans wait to hear, will they be getting a COVID-19 booster shot? Jake?
Elizabeth Cohn, thanks so much. So Sanjay, clearly behind the scenes, this is a huge mess. What's your reaction?
I think the FDA has really taken this opportunity in some ways to signal their independence here. They want to make sure they're independent, and we saw this. Look at the beginning of this the whole vaccine authorization process last year. You remember that with President Trump and the FDA. The FDA saying, "Look, we are going to wait until we are convinced," and we may see some of that here, or they may sort of play it down the line, saying, "We understand that the White House has talked about boosters across the board. The evidence is strongest only for certain age groups, 60 or 65 and older."
All right, Dr. Sanjay Gupta, thank you so much. Appreciate it. And look out for Sanjay's new book titled World War C, Lessons from the COVID-19 Pandemic. It comes out October 5th. We'll talk all about it with him when it comes out. Coming up next,